another day. You can do this. It's only 8 hours, well, 9 if you include lunch and breaks. I guess 10 with the commute, 11 with the drive back. I really hope I don't have to work through lunch again. You'll have some time free after work though, about 5 hours. You'll be home by 7 though, some time to relax. I'll need to make dinner though, I've got to eat better, no more takeout. That'll cut time out of relaxing though. Guess I can get something delivered this one time. Maybe I'll ask a friend to come over, Matt might be free. Hang on, he finishes at 8 PM and he lives an hour away. And he has a partner, so I guess they'll want to see him too. I really don't want to go in. I've used all 3 of my sick days, 4 of my 7 vacation days, which I just sat on a couch for the entire time. I need to save them in case I actually get sick. Maybe I can fake an accident, or even a death in the family. They'll want to see a death certificate though. Can I find a fake one online that I can Photoshop? Forget it. Make sure you arrive on time today. Don't want to hear from the supervisor how I'm not being a team player and how it reflects poorly on the business. Why should I care? Why does he even care? Does he really love working for them that much? That reminds me, the team building seminar's coming up next week. They won't even let me hate my job in peace. I can't do this anymore. I want to be a child again, excited for what I'm going to be when I'm older. How is it that the thing I do to help me survive makes living miserable? I just want to be happy with my life. I want the future my parents told me about. I don't want to be trapped anymore. I don't want this. It's ruining my life. Time to go, I guess. If you're watching this video, there's a very good chance that you don't like your job. In fact, statistically speaking, over half of you are very unsatisfied or unsatisfied with your work. It is staggering to think that around 1/3 of your life is spent at work. That's roughly 90,000 hours doing something that you don't even like. You wake up each day an hour or 2 before having to go into work, trying to psych yourself up for it. Eat breakfast, browse the news feed just so you can see how messed up the world has become compared to how it was yesterday. Get dressed, then head out with the hope that you can tolerate what's to come. If you work in retail, then most of your day will be spent on your feet because your employer doesn't like it when you sit down because it makes you look like you're lacking motivation. Like many customer-facing jobs, you'll also be performing emotional labor throughout the day, pretending that you're happy in front of strangers to make them feel better about the shopping experience and supporting a company where all the employees are satisfied. If you work in customer service, then you'll have to endure an entire day of people complaining to you about company policy that you have no control over, but they'll blame you anyway when you say that you can't accept a return that's 6 days past the return window. You'll have to be apologetic and act as though that you care even though you don't, and in return you'll receive $10 an hour for being a verbal punching bag. If you work in an office, then you'll have the joy of being tethered to a desk for most of the day, staring at a monitor, answering emails, and doing mostly meaningless busy work. You might have to attend the occasional meeting where it's rare that anything of value is actually discussed, but at the very least, now and then your employer might try to placate you by having a pizza party, which lasts for about 30 minutes, and to make things even worse, it's Papa John's, which, to quote Kevin from The Office, is a hot circle of garbage.
I've had over 40 pizzas in the last 30 days.
Of course, there's a lot of different jobs out there with lots of different responsibilities. You could be a nurse or a doctor that's working 12-hour days, saving lives in the middle of a pandemic, only to be insulted by people on Twitter that think being an alpha male is a thing and have their IQ in their screen name. You could be a dentist, which actually has one of the highest job satisfaction rates in the US, which kind of surprised me given that, they spend most of their days sticking fingers in people's mouths. Maybe it's all the nitrous oxide, I don't know. If you get very lucky, you could do what I do and make videos. If you don't mind tolerating the occasional stress stream, where everything falls apart and YouTube demonetizes everything that you've made. Please support me on Patreon. There's plenty of things to do out there, but finding that thing that you're both qualified to do and actually satisfies you can be extremely difficult. In this day and age, if you want to have a chance at getting a job that pays anything close to a livable wage, you're gonna have to get a degree. Many people will tell you that college or university, if like me you're from Europe, is one of the best times of your life. You'll meet new people who share your passion, gain independence, get a taste of the real world, or at the very least a facsimile of it, and develop much needed experience for your career. Colleges are places where young minds are crafted to possibly become the next brilliant thinker in their field, or like some people believe, they're factories where teenagers are transformed into socialists. If only. If you live in a country like the US or the UK, however, there's a cost to this, and investing in your future is pricey, to say the least. In the US, the average cost of tuition for attending a public 4-year institution is $9,580 per academic year. The average cost for expenses for this, including books, supplies, and accommodation, averages out at about $16,284, bringing the total cost to $25,864 per year. This can vary drastically too. If you attend an out-of-state college, you could have to pay as much as $43,721 for a year. For a student living on campus in an in-state college, that would mean paying a staggering $103,456 for a 4-year degree. However, there's a catch, and that is that the 4-year degree is becoming a myth. As of 2019, only 39% of students actually graduate within that time frame. The majority finish within 6 years, so you can add an extra $52,000 onto that total. It goes without saying, but the majority of people in America absolutely cannot afford this, so they have no other option than to take out student loans, and that means that you could be saddled with tens of thousands of dollars in debt as young as 18 years old. You may think, well, if you don't want the debt, then get a job without the degree, but good luck with that. Many employers won't even look at your resume if you don't have a college degree. 41% of employers in the US now hire college-educated employees for roles that were previously held by those with high school diplomas, a figure that's quickly getting higher since it was 37% in 2016. Even if you do happen to find work with only a high school education, sorry to say, but it's probably not going to pay enough. The median annual earnings for college grads with bachelor's degrees aged 22 to 27 is $44,000, whereas for high school grads it's $30,000, which is nowhere near enough to live on. There's actually a 3.5 times lower poverty rate for bachelor's degree holders compared to those with high school degrees, so even though it's easy to suggest that college is optional, it frankly isn't. It's a little mystifying to me that teenagers, the people known for making dumb decisions, are asked to decide what they want to be for the rest of their lives and have to start applying to colleges as early as 17 years old. Not only is college a necessity, but it's kind of a gamble. People change during their time in higher education, so there's every chance that your career that you wanted at 17 may not be so desirable when you're 21. I actually wanted to be a music journalist when I went to university, but my passion for discovering new music died down significantly when I was halfway through my course. The point here being that if you've invested so much into a subject that you no longer love, you're still going to have to pay for it, whether you decide to switch your major, start from scratch, or quit entirely. Once you've got that degree, you're sent out into the real world to find work, where you'll very quickly find out that almost none of the practical skills that you learned at college are applicable in the workplace. Oh well. You have so much debt to your name that you have to make sure it's a good paying job too, because according to the Federal Reserve, the median monthly student loan payment is $222. This is a number that's heavily skewed since 38% of respondents had loans in deferment, and if you decide to defer your loan payments, you'll end up paying more in the long run since the interest will accumulate over time. Don't worry though, you've got some time to decide what you want to do after you graduate. If you want to avoid deferment, then you need to find a job with only 6 months. A good job. A well-paying job. A job that you don't have experience for yet. That shouldn't be too hard to find in 6 months, right? So it's time to get your dream job and make that expensive education worth it. You're ready to put yourself out there and get the attention of an employer fortunate enough to have you. If you're in a country like the UK or many other places around the world, you'll have the luxury of some more time since you don't have to start paying back your loans until you're employed. But in the US, you either pay now or defer and pay more later on. So how does one go about getting one of these jobs? Well, if you ask your boomer or Gen X parents, they'll say that you need to go out visiting businesses in person and asking if they need any help like it's the 1930s or something. Excuse me, sir, I'm a real good worker. You'll see if you give me a chance. I've got more elbow grease and gumption than anyone out there. Oh, please, sir, give us a job and you'll see that I'm one of the best molecular biologists around. Obviously, this is nonsense. No one does this anymore and older generations need to stop suggesting it. No, if you want to find a job, you need to write up your resume and post it on a site like Indeed. Make sure it's no more than 2 pages and be aware that some employers will want you to write a cover letter where you write 300 words awkwardly expressing how amazing you are and why you would love to work for them. I've heard many great things about what it's like to work for your company, and I believe I would be a great fit for the position of... Look, just give me the job, okay? I'm broke and my parents keep telling me to drive Uber. Although the methodology of finding a job has become simpler, actually getting a job has become significantly more stressful. In a more ideal world, you'd research a few companies that you might like to work for and send out your resume, then maybe wait a couple of days to see if you can hear back from them. But if you've done any amount of job hunting recently, you'll know that the truth is far from ideal. If you want to get a job without any experience, industry connections, or an education from a prestigious university, you'll probably have to take what could best be described as the shotgun approach, where you basically put aside your desire to work for a particular company or in some cases a particular field, and just throw out applications like you're an enthusiastic club promoter handing out flyers. And it can take literally dozens, if not hundreds of applications to jobs before you get a single interview, let alone a job offer. And I have the stats to back that up. According to TalentWorks, it takes on average anywhere from 100 to 200 or more job applications to receive a single job offer in the US, and a measly 8.3 chance of getting an interview from a single application. This means that it would take around 10 to 20 job applications to get one interview, and 10 to 15 interviews to get a job offer. Pretty awful odds, right? Well, maybe this will explain things. Take an average online job posting that 1,000 people have seen. Of those people, 200 will start the application process and 100 will complete it. 75 of those applications will be screened out by either a recruiter or an ATS, an applicant tracking system, which, if you're not aware, is a piece of software which will scan your resume for certain words like degree or experience, and if it doesn't find them, you're automatically rejected. Of those 75 applications, 25 will be seen by the hiring manager, 4 to 6 will be invited for an interview, 1 to 3 will be asked back for a final interview, and only 1 will be offered that job, and that lucky individual will have an 80% likelihood of accepting the job, because at that point, you may as well. This experience can vary depending on the kind of job that you're applying for. Of course, there are places like retail and call centers that hire quickly and en masse due to the revolving door nature of employment in those places. But for jobs that are supposed to be the beginning of your career, this is the unfortunate reality. Every time you send out an application, you're in essence playing a free lottery, except the winnings really aren't that great. There's a couple of reasons why this has happened. One is that degrees simply aren't as valuable as they once were, since so many jobs require a degree now and there are so many people getting degrees. It ends up being a supply and demand issue. If you look back as far as 1970, only 22.3% of the US population had completed 4 years of college. Skip ahead to 2019 and a colossal 72% of people have a degree of some sort. Now you might be thinking, well, if people actually did useful degrees, this wouldn't be a problem. maybe they should learn to code instead of doing photography. First of all, let me say that I'm sorry that your Dogecoin investment didn't work out. I really hope that joke ages well, otherwise I'll look real stupid. Got all up in my stash. Secondly, society places arbitrary values on labor, and it's a little gross to believe that art offers no contribution to the world. If it wasn't for artists, then there wouldn't be any Star Wars or Marvel franchises for you to endlessly devour and complain about forced diversity. As for the whole learn to code argument, sorry, but that market's saturated too. In fact, the odds of you getting an interview as a software developer are a measly 6.1%. The other reasons jobs are so scarce is because employers want them to remain scarce. After the Great Recession of 2007 to 2008, employers across the world started letting go of employees and putting a halt to hiring to protect the bottom line. Despite some companies not surviving the effects of this, many still survived and have gone on not only to flourish, but to make some of the most valuable companies in human history, creating more billionaires than we've ever seen. Regardless of this recovery, the rate at which companies hired employees never truly reverted to what it was pre-recession, as many businesses realized that they could achieve just as much, if not more, profit and efficiency from a smaller staff of workers. They also realized that because people were now afraid of losing their job thanks to the employers constantly pleading poverty, they didn't have to increase their salaries as much as they used to, and that if they did take on new employees, they didn't have to pay them as much. Why? Well, because it's hard to get a job, and if you've defied the odds to actually get a job offer, many people feel that they might be looking a gift horse in the mouth when asking for a decent income. But nonetheless, you got the job. Congratulations, I guess. Now what? You finally did it. You got your foot in the door and they decided to let you in, and now begins your career. You studied how to do this for years now, and you're ready to contribute to the world, to grow and to develop, to earn an income and hopefully more, and pay back those student loans. You're also probably ready to move out of your parents' house, which is probably for the best since they constantly keep talking about how they're going to turn your old bedroom into a study. Jeez, Mum, at least let me pack my stuff up first. Your parents will also give you a friendly reminder that since you're turning 26 soon, you'll no longer be covered under their health insurance, so you'll have the pleasure of paying for that too. But forget about all that, you finally made it. You got a full-time job, it's only 40 hours a week too, and you get 2 days off. Half-hour lunch, a couple of breaks, and if you're lucky, they might even let you have casual Friday. Maybe you can wear that hilarious Shrek t-shirt to show your colleagues that even though you're all business when you're at the workplace, you're a meme god in your downtime. Psst, they won't get the joke. They'll just think you're genuinely enthusiastic about Shrek, and it'll be weird for everyone. Speaking of colleagues, I hope you like them because you're going to be sharing this floor space with them for a very long time. Then of course there's your boss, the person who runs the whole show, whether it's their own company or someone that the company trusted enough to keep things running well and smoothly and betray their own class. Keep employees in line. It's almost hard to believe that you're here. It feels like it was only yesterday that you were a curious child, wondering what it is that grown-ups do that keeps the world moving, but now you're a crucial part of that system and making money from it too. Your future begins now.
I'm so tired. I wish I could be asleep all the time. You just described death. Yeah, I guess I want to be dead.
So, despite your achievement, despite the fact that you've worked so hard to get where you are and received so much praise and recognition from the people in charge and even from the ones that you love, why does the future not seem so great? Why is it that the thing that you wanted for so many years feels so disappointing? Why do you feel ungrateful for doing something that isn't satisfying, and are you alone in thinking this way? Well, thankfully and unfortunately, you're not alone. If you're going to spend 40 hours or more of your time every single week doing something, at the very least, you would hope that it would be satisfying. But despite putting in all this time and effort into work, many of us feel alienated, not just from others, but from the work that we perform for a living. In the Economic and Philosophical Manuscripts of 1844, Karl Marx presented his argument of alienation. He claimed that work is one of the most important factors that separates us from other species. Animals tend to work more because they want more immediate material needs, but as human beings, our work is driven not just for the need for survival, but for satisfaction as well. This can include anything from producing a physical product like a factory worker, or even something more abstract like the creation of data. Say for example, if you work in an electronics store like Best Buy and it's your job to sell televisions, you may be familiar with these products and be knowledgeable enough to answer any questions should a customer ask, but since you only exist as a middleman between the manufacturer and the consumer, you have no stake in this situation or the transaction, other than earning your hourly wage. Because of this, you have no investment in your work other than doing the thing that you're asked to simply to earn a paycheck to pay rent and buy groceries and all that other stuff. You may enjoy doing this. I used to work in a guitar store and I loved talking to people about instruments, but once they bought something and left, I may have enjoyed the interaction, but like many salespeople, I existed to sell an idea. Therefore, the commodity, which in this case is the guitar, had more power in this dynamic than both the purchaser and myself. The customer buys the idea, I sell the idea, and the company pockets most of the money. You could argue that the people in the factory putting together the guitar can derive some satisfaction from this since they actually help physically produce it. But bear in mind that, like many products, the vast majority of guitars are built on a production line by people who aren't paid particularly well. And since the moment they've finished making a guitar, it gets put onto a truck and sent to, well, who knows where, you'd basically have to force yourself to believe that you've created something worthwhile. Even with jobs where you stare at spreadsheets all day or thousands of lines of code, it can be hard to feel satisfied, but because money is such a valuable and necessary commodity, the desire for it has surpassed many people's desire for a fulfilling job. In other words, if all you care about is being well paid, well, then your employer wins, since they don't have to worry about keeping you happy and fulfilled. And because of this, it's not surprising to learn that the more you get paid, the more likely you are to be happy with your job. It's not a shocking revelation by any means, but it illustrates that money is such a powerful commodity. It's made it so even low-wage workers find it much harder to enjoy their work. And before you say, well, those jobs are probably bad to begin with, so why does that matter? Sorry, but there are people out there that actually like being janitors and would like it even more if they were being compensated better. In fact, look at McDonald's workers in Denmark. Not only do they get paid $22 an hour, but they get 6 weeks of paid vacation a year, life insurance, a year's paid maternity leave and paternity leave, and a pension plan. Because of this, not only do they have a much higher job satisfaction rate than Americans' McDonald's employees, the company also has a much higher retention rate as well. Oh, and if you're considering rushing to the comments to say something like, oh, well, how much do they pay for a Big Mac then? Well, I'm already 2 steps ahead of you. The average cost of a Big Mac in the US is $5.66. In Denmark, it's $4.90, making it 76 cents cheaper. Nice try though. Look, just because someone didn't go through 6 years of college, it doesn't mean that they deserve to be punished for doing service work. And if you feel that paying them a livable wage cheapens the value of your work, well, then maybe speak to your employer about that, rather than complain about someone else who's getting a chance at living a better life.
The average employee has 18 panic attacks a year and wonders once an hour, every hour, why this is happening to them.
So you're dissatisfied with your work, and your employer more than likely knows it. I'm sure you'll have received an employee satisfaction survey at your job at some point, which for your sake I hope you filled out honestly, but apparently a third of you lie about how you feel about your job, even though these surveys are supposed to be under a veil of anonymity. Why? Well, we'll get back to that soon. Employers will constantly ask whether you're happy with the way things are. They'll ask for suggestions on how they can do things better or differently, how they can help you develop in the company, and even what they're doing well right now. However, even though these inquiries might occasionally get you a small win every now and then, like, I don't know, free donuts on Monday, or better toilet paper in the bathroom, or even allowing you to wear your Jinko jeans on a casual Friday. These are ultimately hollow gestures, an illusion to make you feel like an empowered employee, I guess. As soon as you start asking for the things that you really want, like higher wages or more vacation time, it'll be more than likely the case where your boss will either flat out tell you that it's not possible, or tells you something like, "we'll see," in a non-committal kind of way. Just like your dad when you asked him if you can go to Disneyland. I'm sure that if you asked anyone in your place of work right now whether they would like to be paid more, they would unanimously agree with you, and your employers know that's what their workers want. But not only do they not care about you being paid more, it benefits them to know that you're not getting paid enough money. Let me explain. As I mentioned earlier, jobs are scarce these days, but they're also low paying. If you're someone that's been through years of college and you're stuck with tens of thousands or more in debt, you're gonna need an income. If you have rent or a mortgage, you're gonna need an income. And if you need to pay bills, eat, or even have the occasional luxury in your life, you're gonna need an income. Also, if you're in the US and age 26 or above, you're going to need health insurance. You're going to need both an income and or a job so you can afford an insurer, because getting insured without an employer is extremely expensive. If you, like 63% of Americans, are living paycheck to paycheck, then your job is your lifeline, and a pay increase would make a huge difference. But employers love nothing more than to tell you that times are tough for them too, and they really can't spare any more money than they already pay you. In 2019, it was reported that game developer and publisher Activision Blizzard made a record-breaking $7.5 billion in profit in 2018, up from $7.2 billion in 2017. Despite this though, the company still saw fit to lay off 800 employees, and to quote the company's CEO Bobby Kotick,
"Well, our financial results for 2018 were the best in our history. We didn't realize our full potential. To help us reach our full potential, we have made a number of important leadership changes. These changes should enable us to achieve the many opportunities our industry affords us."
In an expose by Jason Schreier in August 2020, it was revealed that the pay disparity in Activision Blizzard was so great that employees that were earning more decided to share their compensation to those earning less in secret. Things were so bad for their lower wage employees that they literally couldn't afford lunch, and people had to buy it for them. Meanwhile, Bobby Kotick was taking home $40 million a year as their salary, which is around 319 times more than the median salary of an employee at his own company. Activision Blizzard makes Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, and more. They are one of the most well-renowned and profitable game companies in the world, in the most profitable entertainment industry in the world. You may ask yourself, why didn't they just leave? Well, you could ask any person who's working paycheck to paycheck the same question, and you'd get the same response every single time. I can't afford to leave, and it's too hard to get another job. And that's a perfectly valid reason, because if you remember what I said earlier, the process of actually finding a job can be excruciatingly long and stressful. And if you're already balancing a work life and personal life, then it gets even more stressful. It's not like you can even take some time off to recollect yourself. You've got bills to pay, and when a third of your paycheck goes towards rent each month, you can't exactly ask your landlord to give you a break while you find yourself.
I'd rather be miserable at my job and be able to afford a one-bedroom apartment than follow my dreams and live in a studio apartment. Capitalism is a prison.
Now, going back to employee satisfaction, why do we suffer in silence when it comes to voicing our wants and our needs from our employer? Why do so many of us take the crappy deal that they've dealt us, and when they ask us if they can do better, a third of us will lie and say that they're doing a great job? Is because we live in fear of our employer. They have control over the quality of your work life and your personal life, and they don't really care about the latter. If an employer has you in a position where they know that you need to work or your life will fall apart, they can decide exactly how much you need to keep your head just above the surface of the water, but get as much productivity out of you as possible, because at the end of the day, they know that they're the ones that determine whether you have a roof over your head at the end of the night. They could keep you happy, they could pay you more, but instead of giving you anything close to what you deserve, they'd rather hold the sword of Damocles over your head. and drop it the moment you speak out about not getting what you're owed. Want to know the reason why a third of people lie about being satisfied with their job in those surveys? Because they're afraid that despite being told that it's anonymous, if they're a little bit too honest, then it'll come back and bite them and they'll lose their job simply from being honest. This fear is in some instances very valid, and I speak from experiences. When I was about 16 years old, I worked part-time at a certain extremely popular Swedish furniture store in the bedrooms department. When we were asked to fill out employee satisfaction surveys, my angst-ridden teenage brain that had just been exposed to Marxism decided to be brutally honest and tell them how I felt, and that other workers were being exploited, and Swedish furniture store owed us not only a substantial wage increase, but back pay as well. Despite this anonymity, I was called in for a meeting to discuss this, and they said they knew it was me because, and I quote, "it was obvious." Thankfully, I pointed out that they were violating the anonymity policy, and the meeting came to an end. But that manager and a few others harbored a little bit of animosity towards me afterwards. I don't know why. I said that they deserve an increase too. Not only is your workday unfulfilling, it's too long as well. In the UK, on an 8-hour workday, the average worker performs a measly 2 hours and 53 minutes of actual labour. The other 5 hours and 7 minutes is wasted on catching up on the news, socialising with co-workers, browsing social media, breaks, smoking, and searching for new jobs. You could argue that the time people have spent to do things unrelated to work is good for morale, but if they're at a job and they're searching for another job, then they're clearly not satisfied with their job. More to the point, would you rather spend those 5 hours stuck in an office accomplishing nothing and just waiting for 5 PM so you can be free to do what you want? Not only is it wasted time, but is bad for productivity. One study found that most people can focus on a single task for around 20 minutes, or if you have ADHD like me, you'll get sidetracked within about 10 seconds because you have the attention span of a squirrel. During the early stages of the pandemic, some companies saw an uptick in productivity, more than likely due to the fact that the workers were now in a more comfortable and familiar environment and not having to commute. But that has begun to wane because it's still 8 hours and there's still not enough to do during the day for many people. There is a ton of research that confirms that the 40-hour work week and 8-hour workday is bad, not just for employees, but for employers too. Workers get burned out too quickly, and employers are getting terrible returns on productivity. This gets even worse when you factor in overtime into the equation. More importantly though, working too much is bad for your health, and in some cases can be deadly. If you've seen my video on loneliness in Japan, you'll be very aware of the fatal consequences of overwork. And believe me when I say that even though Japan is known for its obsessive work culture, the West is already going down this path. Long work days and weeks are utterly pointless, and there's mounting evidence that shows that shortening them is the way forward. Many European countries have begun to adopt the shorter work week and have found that not only is productivity much higher, but employees are far more satisfied and less likely to burn out. This includes countries like the Netherlands, where the average work week is 29 hours, the lowest of any industrialized nation. In fact, looking at Japan again, in the summer of 2019, Microsoft Japan did an experiment where they shortened the work week by 1 day, and it resulted in a resounding success. Workers were paid their regular 5-day salary, but they were encouraged to enjoy themselves during their time off and not have to worry about work. Meetings were shortened from an hour to 30 minutes and lowered the attendance required to 5 employees. Overall, it resulted in a massive 40% increase in productivity and even lowered their paper usage by 60% and electricity bill by 23%. Despite all these factors, companies keep desperately clinging onto the idea of the 40-hour workweek, even though there's more than enough evidence to suggest that it's not necessary for most jobs. Why do they do this? Because it's how it's been done for a while now. And you could argue that they're taking a if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach, but it is very, very clear that it's broken. And mark my words, if this does change in the future and we get shorter work weeks, the 40-hour work week will be considered one of the biggest managerial mistakes ever. Your reason for working somewhere shouldn't be because I want to stay alive. It's a truly awful thing that so many people wake up in the morning and feel dread about having to go into work. to feel alienated from what you do. And bear in mind, this doesn't just apply to low-paying service jobs. A person earning 6 figures a year isn't immune to feeling this way. Now, this video is already way too long, and it was supposed to be 15 minutes long. I hate this. But apparently it's impossible for me to be succinct. Whatever. But I'm going to try and counteract a few arguments that some of you might be thinking of putting forward in the comments. You should be happy that you even have a job. A completely nonsensical defense. By that logic, you could say that you should be happy when you're in a job where you're being punched in the balls every 15 minutes for 8 hours a day for $50,000 a year. Although if you're into that, I guess that's a dream job. No judgments. Your need for income shouldn't invalidate your need for happiness. You can't complain when there's people like firefighters and soldiers risking their lives for money. Sorry, but this is a fallacy that helps no one, including yourself. If you were to take this approach, it would only mean that the person who has the absolute worst job on earth is allowed to complain about it. Why don't you just go back to college? Excuse me, but didn't you hear how much I said that college is? Even if you do get loans, they don't always cover everything like textbooks and rent. Lots of people can't afford to go to college and earn a living at the same time. Have you wondered why it's so rare to hear about doctors or lawyers that used to live in poverty? Because many people are literally too poor to pull themselves out of poverty. Just set up your own business and be your own boss. Sure, if you can afford to pay for it, I mean, depending on what you want to do, you're gonna need tens of thousands of dollars to pay for location, employees, products, suppliers, insurance, marketing, and way more than that. I hope you're very lucky as well, or very good at what you do, because 45% of businesses fail within their first 5 years and 65% fail within their first 10. If that happens, then all the loans that you took out won't just disappear. You might end up having to pay for that failure for the rest of your life. If you work harder and longer, you'll eventually be a success. Okay, this one's a bit off topic, but it's always bothered me. Recently, the idea of working excessively long work weeks to become successful has gotten really popular. The work week is already way too long as it is, and when you have people like Elon Musk saying stuff like, nobody ever changed the world on 40 hours a week, you know something's wrong with this. Working longer does not equate to success. There's plenty of people out there working 80 hours a week, and they can barely keep a roof over their heads. Socioeconomic mobility is incredibly low these days. Working more benefits your employer, not you. You know, it astounds me that there are people out there that work 9-hour shifts for $10 an hour who will happily spend their 30-minute lunch defending Elon Musk on Twitter. Your little space daddy doesn't care about you, you know. Learn to code. Yeah, because the world doesn't need any of these other silly jobs, you know, it just needs coders. Coders will solve climate change, cure cancer, and keep everything clean. Grow up. Also, this is another fallacy. If there are too many coders and not enough jobs, then the value of existing jobs and future jobs in the field goes down. It's simple supply and demand. Why are you so ugly? Alright, that's uncalled for. These aren't even arguments, they're excuses that let employers and their companies off the hook for treating people like garbage. You don't deserve to feel like you're going to lose your job at any given moment and that your life will fall apart. And your employer shouldn't use this tactic to keep you obedient. It's just another form of indentured servitude. And your employer isn't only getting away with it, they're being rewarded. So how do we fix this mess? Okay, I like your ambition, but let's be realistic for a moment. If you're someone who takes satisfaction in your work and the money you earn from it, then that is great. I really mean it. But you are becoming so rare. As nice as it would be for all of us to burst into our workplace tomorrow and tell your boss that you're running the show now, the odds of that happening are slim to none. And since so many people are rightfully afraid of being fired, it's hard to get everyone on board because they don't want to rock the already unsteady boat that is their life. The fact is, the balance of power is almost entirely weighted towards your employer, and that needs to change. You can keep pressuring your boss into improving work conditions, but your voices as employees are basically silent. If you want to be heard by your company and actually have some say in what you do, how you do it, and how you're rewarded for it, you need to unionize. Thanks to decades of scaremongering from Reaganites and Thatcherites, unions have got a bad reputation, especially in the US, where many consider them to be naturally corrupt and thuggish, and this honestly couldn't be further from the truth. The entire point of a union is to give you and employees like you power in the workplace, to give you a say in how much you get paid, how many hours you have to work, how much time you get off, and protect you from the unreasonable demands and dangerous work conditions. The workplace as it is now is essentially a dictatorship where one person or a handful of people make decisions and you and your fellow workers have absolutely no say in what happens. If you're lucky enough to work at a cooperative business, then you can have an equal share of power and income with all your other employees, but sadly these are pretty rare. With the backing of a union, as the name implies, you are no longer just a single employee fighting for your rights, but a collective of workers who each contribute to make things better for each other. There are lawyers in unions that work full-time to ensure that you remain protected and don't have to go without representation when you need it. It means that if your employer wants to discipline or fire you, your union can send a lawyer to represent you and offer proper legal backing that you otherwise might not be able to afford. Because when you enter those meetings without any representation, believe me when I say that you are completely powerless, and your employer has more than likely made a decision before you even walk through the door, one that you cannot overturn. Unions can not only help you receive better pay, but equal pay. It's no secret that on average women earn significantly less than men, but that average drops significantly for people of color, and especially women of color. A union can ensure that doesn't happen and not only secure you equal pay, but higher pay. Many of them will even provide health coverage, meaning that if the worst does happen, you're not on your own when it comes to medical bills. And lots of unions within industries such as manufacturing have comprehensive and affordable coverage due to the more dangerous nature of the work. Even if you're not in a union, the existence of unions is beneficial to you. If you work in an industry with a large union presence, such as auto workers or steel workers, because unions have been instrumental in setting a bar for wages and legislation there, companies which don't have a union have to be competitive or risk losing workers. Besides all the financial and safety benefits that come with unions, they're also great to be a part of because they make people happier. Of course, the security aspects help with this, but being in a collective with your fellow workers gives you a sense of camaraderie that no team building exercise in existence can compete with. Knowing that your colleague has your back can make the world of difference, even if that colleague is Anthony. Ugh. Lastly, I'm sure many of you have heard that organizing or even talking about unions in a workplace can result in being fired, and this has unfortunately happened with some people. If you're in one of the 27 states with the right to work laws, then your employer does have some cause to let you go, but this doesn't mean that you're not allowed to unionize, far from it. If you're afraid of getting caught, then talk to your co-workers quietly or in private, and when you're getting started, only speak to those that you trust the most. The last thing you want is some bootlicker crying to management in hopes that this will finally get them a supervisor position. Do not let management get a whiff of what you're trying to do. Be secretive when it comes to arranging meetings. In fact, do those outside of the workplace if you can. Eventually, you'll need to collect signatures from your co-workers to confirm that they're on board. This doesn't have to be a contract or anything like that. You can literally ask them to sign a birthday card as a substitute. But before you start getting everyone on board, you should absolutely get in touch with a local labor union to ask if they'd be willing to have you. Even if you work somewhere like a massive supermarket chain, you'll find that most unions will help you out. The other reason why this is important is because some unions will offer you some form of backup while you're trying to arrange everything. So if you do get in trouble with management, then you could potentially have a union lawyer come to protect you and your job and let your employer know that what you're doing is within your rights. If any of this has piqued your interest, then I encourage you to check out some of the resources that I included down in the description. Look, you are not alone in hating your job, and you're not alone in wanting better. It's genuinely heartbreaking to see so many people live their lives this way, and yes, things could be worse, but if you don't do anything about it, then things will get worse. As I mentioned at the start of this video, you spend 1/3 of your life working, another third is spent sleeping, and your last third is your free time. This means that for many, you're only conscious for 1/3 of your life that you can actually enjoy, And I don't know about you, but I think that's frankly unacceptable. You can do better. Your employer can do better. They know they can, but they just don't want to. Because honestly, they'd rather see you homeless than mess with their bottom line. You and your labor are far too valuable to be wasted on people who would swap you out for a machine or an AI at the drop of a hat. Stand up for what's right, be willing to fight, or you could just keep asking your boss and hope for the best. It's from the boss. Oh my god, they got my request. They got our request. What did we get? Pizza party. BYOP. Bring your own pizza. That makes sense. Maybe guillotine's not such a bad idea after all. Hey, you made it to the end. Thanks for sticking around, and if you enjoyed the video then don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. Also, if you'd like to support me in future projects, you can do so at patreon.com/Salari. Any amount is greatly appreciated, even if it's $1, and you can get your name up here along with these fine people. I'd also like to give a special shout out to the following: Neve Breslin, Brandon Wilkinson, Benta, Floof Pants, Tamara, Catherine Engelman, Steve Marr, Lexi Weiss, Fraser, Mariam, Mia Huxley, and Marius Stubberud. You and the rest of the patrons help make this possible. Thank you so much. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at SalariTV. You can also join our Discord as well, and I also stream on Twitch twice a week, so follow me on there. Also, a big thanks to Lance from the Serfs for lending me his amazing voice. Go check them out on Twitch and YouTube. I'll leave some links in the description. Thanks once again for watching. Much love. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Bye bye.